Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at, I guess you could say, a true philosophical heavyweight. Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan.
Right.
Specifically, we'll be exploring part one of Man. Now, Hobbes wasn't exactly writing,
A self-help book.
a self-help book here. He was living through the English Civil War,
Yeah.
a time when England was quite literally tearing itself apart.
Absolutely.
And that experience
Yeah.
really shaped his thinking.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine witnessing firsthand the chaos and brutality of civil war.
Right.
It kind of helps us understand why Hobbes was so focused on understanding, I guess you could say, the
Yeah.
darker side of human nature.
Yeah. So he wasn't just some, armchair philosopher. He
We're
was,
writing from experience.
writing from a place of real turmoil.
Exactly. And he took a very particular approach
Okay.
to understanding society. We need to start with the individual,
Okay.
and not just any individual, but one stripped bare of all social structures.
Like a blank slate.
Yeah, operating purely on instinct.
Gotcha.
That's where his idea of the state of nature comes in. But we'll get to that
Okay.
a little bit later.
All right. So let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What's the foundation of Hobbes's view of human nature?
He was a materialist.
Mm-hmm.
He believed everything in the universe,
Okay.
including us and our minds,
All right.
is made of matter
Okay.
and obeys physical laws.
So there's no
The message
mystical
to Hobbes.
soul stuff.
Right, like a soul or spirit or anything like that.
Exactly.
We're basically just complex machines.
Well, Hobbes wouldn't have put it that way, but the analogy is helpful.
Right.
Think of it like this. We experience the world through our senses, right?
Sure.
We see a sunset. We smell freshly baked bread.
Mm-hmm.
We feel a warm breeze.
Right.
Hobbes compares these sensory experiences
Yeah.
to a seal,
Okay.
pressing its image into wax. They leave a mark, an impression on our minds.
And these impressions, these sensory experiences, are the raw material of all our thoughts.
Interesting. So we're constantly, I guess,
Bombarded, yeah.
bombarded by these sensory inputs, and they're like shaping our minds.
Precisely.
Yep.
And the next step is imagination.
Okay.
We take those basic sensory impressions and start playing with them,
Yeah.
combining them in different ways.
So like we're building with Legos, right? We have all these different bricks.
Sensations.
Yeah, those are our sensations.
Oh, yeah.
And imagination is what lets us kind of build whatever we can dream up.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Mm.
And Hobbes argues that even our most complex thoughts, our abstract ideas, all originate from those basic building blocks of sensation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild to think about. So if all our thoughts are coming from our senses,
Right.
then what's driving us? What motivates us to do anything?
Here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Hobbes says it all boils down
Oh,
to
what is it?
desires and aversions. We're constantly seeking what feels good, what we desire,
Yeah.
and avoiding what feels bad,
Hmm.
what we fear.
So pleasure and pain are like
You could say that.
ultimate motivators.
You could say that. But Hobbes adds a twist,
Okay.
a particularly powerful desire,
All right.
the desire for power.
Okay. So it's not just about.
It's not just about basic needs.
Okay.
It's about the drive to secure our position, to control our surroundings, to gain an edge over others.
Because that's how we avoid pain and achieve pleasure, right?
Exactly.
By having power over our circumstances.
Exactly. Hobbes believed this desire for power
Right.
is fundamental to human nature.
Mm.
In Leviathan, he writes,
Right.
a competition of riches, honor, command, or other power inclineth to contention, enmity, and war.
Wow.
We're never truly satisfied with what we have.
Yeah.
We always want more.
To feel secure.
To be in control.
Right.
Yeah.
So even if I had all the food, shelter, and comfort that I could ever want,
Yeah.
I'd still be driven by this desire for more power.
According to Hobbes, yes.
Wow.
It's not simply about meeting our basic needs.
Mhm.
It's about that deep-seated desire
Okay.
for security, for control over our lives, and often over others.
That's a fascinating
It is.
and maybe slightly unsettling thought.
Yeah.
I mean,
it does.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It makes you think. And this brings us to Hobbes's most famous
Okay.
and perhaps most controversial idea,
Okay.
the state of nature.
Okay. So the state of nature.
But we'll say that for our next dive into Leviathan.
Okay. So we've kind of set things up here, listeners.
We have.
We're diving deep into Hobbes's view of human nature. It's a materialistic world.
It is.
Driven by the pursuit of pleasure.
Yeah.
And crucially...
Power.
Come back for part 2, where we'll explore what happens when these power-hungry individuals are let loose in a world without rules.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be pretty.
Stay tuned.
It's going to get dark.
Buckle up.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time we were exploring, I guess, Thomas Hobbes' rather, stark view of human nature. And remember, we're talking about a guy who lived through
a brutal civil war.
So it's understandable that he wasn't exactly a starry-eyed optimist.
He definitely was not. He believed that at our core, we're driven by self-preservation.
Right.
A relentless pursuit of, what we desire, and an equally powerful fear of what we want to avoid.
Yeah.
And I think,
the biggest fear of all.
The biggest fear of all, I think, is death.
Right. And on top of that, we're all, we're wired for this constant power grab.
Yeah.
Always seeking, more control.
Always more.
To secure our place in the world.
Yeah. To secure, our little corner of the world.
It's a bit unsettling, but it also kind of rings true, doesn't it?
It does. It does make you think.
And this brings us to Hobbes's most infamous idea. The state of nature.
Okay, the state of nature. It sounds almost idyllic when you just say it like that.
Right.
But I have a feeling...
Not quite.
That's not the case here.
Not quite. It's a thought experiment.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah.
Imagine a world without any form of government, laws, social structures. Just individuals, each driven by their own desires and fears, with no external authority to kind of keep them in check.
So basically, it's anarchy.
Exactly.
It's a free-for-all where everyone's just out for themselves.
Exactly. And this is where Hobbes' understanding of human nature really comes into play.
Right.
In the state of nature, where there's no power structure, there's no rules to enforce cooperation.
Yeah.
That innate desire for power becomes, I think, a recipe for conflict.
Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for a disaster.
Yeah.
It's like a real-life Hunger Games, but without the fancy outfit.
You're not far off. Hobbes himself describes life in this state as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
Wow.
He believed that without a common power to keep us, in awe, we'd be constantly at odds with each other, driven by suspicion, competition, and that ever-present fear of death.
So it's not that Hobbes believed that humans are inherently evil.
Right. No.
Right. It's more that he saw this potential for chaos as an inevitable outcome of our basic nature.
Exactly.
Especially in the absence of rules.
Precisely. He believed that even the most rational person, driven by self-preservation, would be forced to act aggressively in the state of nature, simply to survive.
Okay.
The dog-eat-dog world where cooperation is risky.
Right.
And looking out for number one is the only logical strategy.
Yeah, it's a pretty bleak picture.
It is.
So how do we escape this state of nature?
Yeah.
Is there any hope for humanity, according to Hobbes?
There is, and this is where his idea of the social contract comes in.
Okay, so the social contract, I've heard of it.
Sure.
But to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Yeah.
So can you break that down for us?
It's the key to Hobbes' entire political philosophy.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a trade-off.
Oh.
We as individuals agree to give up
Okay.
some of our natural freedom, our right to do whatever we want,
Right.
in exchange for the security and protection of living in a society governed by laws.
So we're trading a little bit of our freedom.
You could say that.
For safety and stability?
Yes.
Sounds like a pretty good deal, if you ask me.
That's exactly how Hobbes saw it.
Yeah, especially...
He argued that it's in our rational self-interest to make this trade.
Right.
Think about it. In the state of nature, even though you theoretically have the right to anything, you're also constantly at risk.
Right, because anyone could just come and take what you have.
Exactly.
And there's no one to stop them. Exactly.
By entering into the social contract, we're essentially creating a system where everyone agrees to abide by certain rules.
Okay.
And there's a power structure in place to enforce those rules.
Okay, so we agree to limit our own freedom.
Yeah.
But who gets to make the rules?
Yeah.
Who enforces them?
This is where Hobbes gets really controversial.
All right.
He believed the best way to ensure peace and security is to have a single absolute sovereign. a Leviathan.
A Leviathan, like the sea monster.
Exactly. He uses this image of a powerful, awe-inspiring creature to represent the sovereign power.
Okay.
It could be a king, it could be a group of rulers, or even a democratic assembly. But the key is that they have absolute authority to make and enforce the laws.
Absolute authority. That sounds a bit intense, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, like, who gets to decide who this all-powerful Leviathan is?
That's a great question, and it's one that, to be honest, Hobbes doesn't fully address. He seems more concerned with establishing the need for this kind of absolute power than with the practicalities of how it would be chosen or controlled.
I can see how that would raise some eyebrows, even back then.
It did, and it continues to be a point of debate among political philosophers.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the pros and cons of absolute sovereignty, let's unpack why Hobbes thought it was necessary.
Okay, all right, I'm all ears.
Okay.
So why did he think we needed a Leviathan to keep us all in line?
His reasoning goes back to his understanding of human nature.
Okay.
Remember that constant desire for power we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, Hobbes believed that even within a society with laws, that desire wouldn't just disappear.
So even with rules in place?
Yes, even with rules.
We'd still be tempted to,
We'd still be tempted to grab more power.
Break the rules if we thought we could get away with it.
Exactly. And he believed that any division of power, any system where authority was shared or fragmented, would inevitably lead to weakness and instability.
Because those competing power centers would be constantly kind of like jockeying for position.
Yes, exactly.
And maybe even tempted to break the rules themselves.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Hobbes saw the state of nature not just as something we escaped from in the distant past, but as a constant threat, like a lurking danger that could resurface.
If the sovereign
power wasn't strong enough.
Right, to hold it at bay.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic here.
Yeah.
But I still have some questions.
Sure.
If we're handing over all this power to a single entity, what's to stop them from abusing it?
Yeah.
What about our individual rights?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
Right.
And they lead us to another fascinating aspect of Hobbes' social contract theory.
All right, listeners, we've gone from the chaotic state of nature to the potential solution of this, powerful Leviathan to enforce the rules. But
is it really a solution if it comes at the cost of our freedom?
That's the question.
Right.
The question.
Come back for part 3, where we'll grapple with the ethical dilemmas of Hobbes' social contract and explore how he tried to balance the need for order with the rights of the individual.
We'll see if he succeeds.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been wrestling with Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, and
it's a tough one.
Let's be honest, it's a bit of a mind bender, right?
Yeah.
Last time we ended on a pretty big cliffhanger.
We did.
We were talking about how Hobbes sees the social contract as a way to escape that brutal state of nature.
Yeah.
But it requires submitting to an absolute sovereign, a Leviathan.
A Leviathan, yeah. It's a trade-off that raises a ton of questions.
Exactly. I mean, it's all well and good to have a strong authority figure kind of keeping the peace, but what's to stop this Leviathan from becoming a tyrant?
Yeah.
I mean, what about our basic rights?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Oh.
Hobbes wasn't naive to the potential dangers of absolute power.
Okay.
He recognized that the whole system hinges on the laws that the sovereign creates and enforces.
Okay, so the Leviathan makes the rules.
Yeah.
But are those rules just based on, their whims?
Not according to Hobbes.
Okay.
He believed that laws, even those issued by an absolute sovereign, should be grounded in reason.
Okay.
And something he called natural law.
Okay, natural law. That sounds pretty vague.
Yeah.
What exactly did Hobbes mean by that?
It's a complex concept with a long history, but in essence, Hobbes saw natural law as a set of principles that are inherent to human nature.
Okay.
And can be discovered through reason.
Okay.
They're not written down somewhere.
Right.
But they reflect a kind of universal morality
Gotcha.
that even a king should be bound by. Okay, so even though the Leviathan has this ultimate power, they're still supposed to operate
within these natural laws.
Okay.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
For Hobbes, the purpose of law is to promote peace and security.
Okay.
Not to not to serve the personal whims of the ruler.
It makes sense. So what kind of laws did Hobbes think were essential for like a well-functioning commonwealth?
He believed that laws should be clear,
okay,
consistent, and known to the public.
So everyone knows what the rules are.
Everyone knows the rules, exactly. They should also be designed to prevent things like theft, murder, fraud, basically anything that would undermine social stability.
Right, so that would
throw us back.
Throw us back into that state of nature.
Exactly.
Okay, so no murdering your neighbor or stealing their cow.
Right, exactly.
Seems reasonable enough.
Yeah, the basics.
But what about individual rights? Where do they fit in?
Hobbes recognized that individuals do have certain inalienable rights.
Okay.
The most fundamental being the right to self-preservation.
So I can't just sign away my right to protect my own life when I enter into this social contract.
Exactly. Even in Hobbes' system, where the sovereign holds vast power,
right,
individuals retain the right to resist any direct threat to their lives.
Okay, that's reassuring. So it sounds like Hobbes was trying to strike
he was
a delicate balance here,
A delicate balance.
Yeah.
Strong authority.
Strong authority on the one hand, but with some safeguards for individual rights on the other.
Exactly. He was walking a tightrope, for sure. But it's important to note that for Hobbes, any resistance to the sovereign should be an absolute last resort.
Okay.
He really believed that any rebellion, even against a tyrannical ruler, would be far more destructive than simply enduring.
So basically just kind of suck it up.
Pretty much, yeah.
And hope the Leviathan doesn't go full-on tyrant.
Yeah, hope for the best.
Okay.
Well, Hobbes was writing in a time of tremendous upheaval.
Yeah.
So his emphasis on order and stability at almost any cost.
Yeah, I can see how that makes sense.
It's understandable, yeah. But you can see how his ideas have sparked centuries of debate.
Of course.
About the balance of power.
Right.
And the limits of authority.
This whole discussion is making my head spin a bit.
I know. It's a lot to take in.
It's fascinating how Hobbes's ideas, even the ones that seem extreme, force us to confront these fundamental questions about human nature, about government,
absolutely,
about the very idea of freedom.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It really is. It really is.
He may not have all the answers,
right?
But Hobbes's Leviathan is a powerful reminder that the quest for a just and stable society is an ongoing project.
Yeah,
a balancing act.
Right, a balancing act that every generation
must grapple with.
Has to grapple with, yeah. It's a project that's still very much in progress, even centuries later.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, listeners, I think we've plumbed the depths of Hobbes' Leviathan for now.
I think so.
It's been a deep dive into the darker currents of human nature and the complex challenge of building a society where both order and individual rights can coexist.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. And maybe next time we can explore some of the thinkers.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Who challenged and expanded upon Hobbes' ideas.
Yeah. There are many.
That's a great idea. We'll have to add that to the list for future deep dives.
Absolutely.
Until then, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep exploring those big ideas.
Yeah, keep those minds working.
Thanks for joining us.